And I guess I'll start at the beginning. When I read in the credits that this is, you had many collaborators on the screenplay, I think, but written from a story, your story. Can you talk about sort of the process from the story that you either wrote or created and through the whole writing process of the screenplay into getting the film made? I mean, was there a long period of time, or was the story sort of in your head as you were writing the screenplay? Can you talk about that?
The actual story was exactly what is it now. When I wrote it in the first place, I would say in 2002. The story came out of many different influences. Sorry.
Okay, we'll keep them close to our lips.
Sorry. And it came out from a short film I did with Tilda Swinton called The Love Factory, which is a portrait of Tilda in which she has a conversation with me about her vision of love. And also it was a sort of it was my effort in trying to do my personal version of the Buddenbrook. I know this is extremely pretentious to say, but I go ahead. Okay. And afterwards, I started to I wrote the script with 3 different writers, separated to each other. And
you usually do that. Use so many writers. That's interesting that there was a lot of collaborating.
The first draft we wrote, actually the first 3 drafts we wrote, I wrote it with Barbara Alberti, the glorious screenwriter of The Night Porter, and it was a bit too literate for me. It was too extensive, and I had to undersize it in a way to make it much more practical about people who work. That was what I wanted to do, to have a very matter of fact kind of life for the characters. And I approached another writer which tried to simplify the work of Barbara, and then the third writer is my editor, a very dear friend of mine, who I worked with a few months before starting prepping the movie to really try to give the pace at the movie before shooting it.
And you said that, of course, you'd made another movie with Tilda Swinton. You've known her for a number of years, so I'm going to presume that you wrote this with her in mind.
Yes.
And did you write it with any of the other actors in mind, or was it mostly for Tilda?
It was for Tilda and for Alba Rohrwacher, who plays Betta. I think they are perfectly matched. They look very like mother and daughter. Yeah, that's it. I wrote for them, and then I choose the other cast all through the process of making the movie.
And so, of course, when everyone talks about this film, we talk about what the influences that we see, and people talk about Douglas Sirk, and Visconti. And can you talk a little bit, not necessarily in general about your influences in filmmaking, but because as I see this film, I do see these influences, but I also see it as something that is very new. Also, it's not just copying what they did. But did you have in mind particularly to do references to, say, Visconti or Sirk or other people who make great melodramas when you made this, or did it just sort of turn out that way?
The truth is that I am an obsessive-compulsive movie buff, and I really watch a lot of movies, and I've been doing this since I was a kid. And also I have a sort of like analytical attitude, and I like to not categorize, but try to understand the big scheme on things. So there is a sort of unconscious influence that comes along, and then there was a lot of works from people like Visconti, absolutely, or Antonioni, or Hitchcock, and one particular movie by Johnny Huston that is The Dead, that we all studied, committing, going back to the school, like really trying to understand. And what we understood 2 things. First, all of these movies from these masters from the 50s and the 70s, what we can describe as the modern cinema, not the classical, the modern era of filmmaking, those movies are incredible as entertaining pieces, but also as experimental pieces. The way these masters play with the language of cinema, it's so really beyond compared to the depressing televisual quality of the last 20 years of filmmaking, I would say. So it was easy to say, let's try to be like them. Let's try. I'm not saying that I'm succeed, but let's try at least to try to apply to filmmaking as a language that it has its own specific. I don't think that cinema is something that should be generic. It's something very specific, you know? And to try to make it generic, it's really not speaking that language.
Well, I have more questions, but let's see. Let's get started in here before you run out of time. Yes, in the back. So he sees a Jewish sense in this, an Italian Jewish sort of film with Tilda being a Russian Jew. Is she? Does it matter?
I like this version of the movie, so I would not reply to that. No, the reality is that the family is not Jewish. And Tilda, I didn't mean to be Jewish. Tilda. There is a moment in which the two brothers confront each other in the factory, and one of the two says to the idealistic one, "Look, you think that everything is nice and tidy, but the reality is that this enterprise has been built during the fascism, and our grandfather that you see as a great patron was dealing with the fascists, and he exploited Jewish workers," which is the opposite, I would say.
Do you have any particular scene in here that was perhaps more difficult to film or that's just closer to your heart?
I change every day these things. I don't know. I think there is a moment in the movie where you see Tilda Swinton, Emma, from above going toward the cook with the yellow carpet. This particular shot I'm very proud of because this is a very tiny little Italian movie we were broke in doing it. We still are. I am not from this heritage. No.
So this is not autobiographical. Okay.
American apparel. It's not Fendi.
I'm dressed nicer.
But that shot, we didn't have cranes in the movie. First, because I don't believe in tools for the sake of tools. This is like for people who have problems with their sexuality, I would say. Directors. So, and in that moment, probably I had a problem. I said, I have to go high. So I said to my key grip, I said, Massimo, great guy. I said, Massimo, I need to do this, but how do we do it? And he said, can you give me an hour? In a very tight scheduled movie, an hour is a long time. So I had to say, okay. And he built with woods a ladder to put the camera above. That was great. And we shot all the people going toward from one room to the other, staging this passage. But we ended up using only that moment, till the turning and going to there. And I think this is a very strong moment that expresses much more than any close-up you can do in that moment, of this really turning point of the character toward a new life, probably.
Now, so you say that this was created as you were there, because I wanted to ask you, I mean, the compositions of these shots are just so incredible, and a lot of formalism I see in some of them. Did you storyboard this in advance, or was there a lot of, as you were making the film, as you were shooting it, getting shots, ideas in your head, and then going from there?
It's the two things. I do a lot of storyboards. I like extensive use of that, and then I throw it in the bin, because that gives confidence to really, as Jean Renoir said, to leave the door open to reality in the set. This is key for any filmmakers, I would say. Otherwise, you make very cold movies, like staged movies. But the storyboard thing is important because you try to overcome the banality of your work, you know? Because usually we are so much passive to images, to these like really, really aggression of images that we are submitted by. You know, like we go, everywhere we go, it's, I mean, you in New York particularly, with all this screen everywhere, but all of us, like, hidden by this. And so it's like, as a director, I feel that everything I think as a director, when I read a script that somebody gives to me, my film of that script, when I read it for the first time, is the most shallow and banal. It's so bad. You know, it's like every other movies, because you have to go beyond that. You have to really, so to do a storyboard, it's a way of discipline, you know, like to try to really, really not go into the lazy direction. And then when you are exploring all the possibilities, you choose the right one. And usually this moment is really in the set.
This is a question about the John Adams music. It looks as the whole thing was truly scored, although there were pieces from Nixon in China. Can you talk about the music and working? He did the score for this, or all the music that's placed in?
The music and the house, they, in a way, existed before I ever met these two elements. The way I describe the house in the script, it's exactly the way you see the house in the reality. And when I found this place called Villa Necchi Campiglio, and the family is called Recchi, but before that, it's a nice coincidence. I was completely, oh my God, overwhelmed by this match. And when I got 5 years ago a present from a great mentor of mine, the late Gareth Wigan, who passed out a couple of months ago. And I got this CD from John Adams, Naive and Sentimental Music. And I put the CD, it was my birthday. I remember I was in Madrid and I put this, and I was already working on I Am Love, the script, and I heard this music and I said, oh my God, this is what I never heard, but this is what I really was looking for. I don't feel comfortable in working with composers of soundtrack because it's a process too short for me. I don't understand how you can make a soundtrack in 2-3 weeks when you have musicians who work for years into a composition. And also I don't like the idea that a composer arrives after the director, you know? He composes after. It's there is sort of imposition of a personality over the movie that I don't think it's right for the movie. And not because I want to control every aspect, but because the movie has a sort of necessity of independence from the will of anyone else than the movie itself. I don't know if I expressed myself clearly, but sorry. And when I heard John Adams, I became obsessed, and I started to study John Adams. I bought all the CDs I could. I read the books. I went to see his operas. I remember an amazing night in Verona watching Nixon in China with all these old ladies shocked still by John Adams, which is nice. And I started to rewrite the script on the music, to try to find pieces of music to fit scenes. And during the shoot, we used the music loud, like in a musical. You know, you were shooting on the music. Everybody were tuning their work on the music. Tilda, the other actors, and the grip was pulling the camera at the same pace of the music. And so we were in problem. We were in danger, because what if John Adams didn't want to allow us to use this music? Yeah. We had to have some Italian cheap composer on board. If I think now, I'm scared of that. And then we approached Adams. Tilda wrote a mail to Adams. She had somebody who knew him, and he was amazing. He said, oh, go ahead and show me the movie when you have it. And we showed the movie to Mr. Adams, and he said, I like it, it's fantastic, go ahead.
Why did she not break up with him early in the movie? Well,
I don't think that Betta has an affair with Eva. But that's another fantastic movie.
And we all see in these things what we see.
Let
in
me
these
say
things.
that. Let me thank my dear friend of Metrodome here. They are releasing the movie on the 18th of June.
18th
Am I correct?
of June.
Yes.
Magnolia. You saw the
Metrodome.
logo.
Oh my God, Metrodome is the UK releaser.
Oh, I thought you said that.
Magnolia. Sorry, Matt. Sorry, Iman.
He only deals with distributors whose names begin with an
Jet lag.
M. And no, the fabulous people from Magnolia, many of whom are in the back, are releasing it on June 18th. And I think at least one theater will be the Lincoln Plaza over here. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So
The Sunshine.
yes, in the sunshine, exactly. So go see it again and tell all your friends. So we're always very happy we have films that have distribution. Are you picking? You pick. Go ahead. Can you talk about the significance of that final shot that comes after we have a bit of the credits, and then they're sort of in a cave?
I like the idea that each of the people who sees the movie, and I hope it's going to be a lot, they will figure out what is it. I have still to figure out.
You just liked it, so yeah. To whom is the film dedicated?
This is a very sad story. Gianandrea Mutti, he is one of my greatest friends. A great cinephile. We were waiting him to visit us on the set mid-July, and he had a terrible incident and he died during the shoot of the movie.
Well,
but I think his spirit is in the movie.
Why did you feel it important to shoot those certain scenes in London? There were some scenes shot in London. And this is apropos of this viewer mentioning that you said you almost went broke. So I guess he's wondering if that had something to do with finances.
I think that my commitment as a filmmaker is to make a movie as precise and as detailed as possible. And I believe that if you have to talk about selling of a company, there are very few places in Europe, and one is London. Why not?
So the question is, it seems to this viewer that there was never a safe environment for her in the home. And did you intend it to actually feel like an environment that wasn't safe?
I wouldn't say safe. I would say that Emma... she hasn't got a place yet in her life. She doesn't have a place. She's been moved. Her identity has been denied.
So it's not so much that she's not safe, but just that she's not herself.
She's probably not herself.
Yeah.
She's always ready to do something. She's working actually.
Yeah. I think you were about to say not comfortable. I think you might have been maybe just not comfortable in her skin in these places, perhaps. What is the film that's on the television? She's in bed with her husband, and why did you choose that? Because it's Philadelphia.
It's Philadelphia by Jonathan Demme.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I choose it because for the deliberate pleasure of paying homage of one of my greatest heroes, Jonathan Demme, master director, and I don't know him, but I believe he's a great human being.
Mm-hmm. He sat on the stage, probably right where you are.
God.
So
I'm gonna faint.
We'll get you together.
And there is a direct quote from that movie when Tom Hanks is expressing himself to Joe Miller, played by Denzel Washington, singing for him the Andrea Chenier, the aria La Mamma Morta, and he says, "I am love, I am divine." It was the didascalic moment of the movie.
The scene when she speaks to her son and they're speaking in Russian, and this viewer, it seemed like it added sort of an intimacy to it. And why did you choose to have them speak in Russian in that scene?
They speak in Russian at the beginning of the movie. They speak in Russian a few times, the mother and son, Eduardo and Emma. They do in the kitchen, they do in front of the door at the beginning of the house. My mother is Algerian, and I don't speak Arabic, and I believe this is because she really wanted to. My mother has been pulled away from her family in Morocco because of her choice to marry a Western man, a non-Muslim probably. And I think that she had to shut down this door, where I think Emma tries to keep that a little bit open, the door, talking to Russian to the son. Is the moment. That's why this son cannot confront that his mother has an emotional life that goes beyond the role that she has as a mother and as a wife in the family.
So this viewer is seeing more sort of homoerotic sort of references, wondering if the choice of Philadelphia also had something to do with this. Is she wrong to see more sort of homoerotic references in this film?
I believe that relationship among people are informed by by at least two languages, an inner and an outer language. And I believe that the denial of your feelings or the uncomfortableness in dealing with your feeling and not trying and the labeling of it makes a lot of error. You make a lot of error. I don't particularly would thematize it as homoerotic or homosexual undercurrent.
Eduardo in love with Antonio because he seemed to support him.
I think that Eduardo was jealous of both. And as the great Bertolucci says, when you're jealous of both.
I think we have time for just one more question, all the way in the back there. Can you talk about your camera and the director of photography?
Yorick Lesseau is... he pretends he was born the same year of mine because we share the birthday, 10th of August, but he's a little bit older. And he worked with Oliviera Sayas, Nico Papatakis, and François Ozon, Eric Zonka. He did a movie with Tilda called Julia, that probably somebody saw because it's been released by Magnolia in America last year, right? What can I say? It's great. It's fantastic. I think he's a masterful DP. So far, it's the most exciting and compelling and rewarding collaboration I had with a DP. We went through a lot of paintings to understand what this movie should have looked. We really looked for this great painter of the early 20th century in Italy called Giovanni Boldini, who was a great painter of the affluent society at the time. He did one of the most important portraits of the Marchesa Casati, for example. And we also looked paintings from the Russian avant-garde, particularly Pugny and Malevich. And finally, we also studied the work of a contemporary Russian-American painter called Matt Levenstein that we really felt was very interesting for the movie. And to achieve the texture, the kind of light color and composition we wanted, we decided to stick in working on the old-fashioned, which is not using the digital intermediate digital color correction that is now used normally. And I believe it's a backward thing. It's not a forward thing. Forward is to use the digital cameras and to, even though still the digital camera that cannot achieve the same level of quality of the film, but to shoot in film and then to correct in digital the images, I think it's not good. And we worked chemical, and I'm very proud of the results.
I'd have other questions to ask for that, but we don't have time. Luca, thank you so much for this wonderful film. And we thank all of you. Yay! brings up.